Hello, everybody. We're going to get started. So my name is Dimitri. I'm your host today, and welcome to our second episode of the Eagleview 1 flight series. Today, we are going to primarily focus on the imagery API, what we believe help you power next generation app development. So we just a few words about this webinar series. So as I just said, this is our second episode. We are going to be running these events every 4 to 6 weeks, and they are really focused on the Eagleview community. We want these events to be very feature and use case centric. So you will see that we aim at delivering that today as we did last time. So very casual, very interactive. We'll have plenty of time for question and answer. By the end of this session. Session is probably going to be about 60 minutes today. We have a lot of content to cover. Those webinars are also recorded, and we post them on the YouTube channel. And if you want to look at the first episode, you can actually just snap the QR code here. And they're also available, obviously, on our website. So I'm pretty excited today. We have a very cool panel. We have three of my colleagues from Eagleview, Bree, Travis, and Josh, who will be delivering most of the content. And because we want these webinars to also be a forum for us to not only share our views on how you can use our features, but also share how our customers are using those features. So we are going to have Corey and Kyle demonstrating what they do with our technology and how they've been able to leverage our API. Now, a few housekeeping things before we get started. We will be monitoring the question section, so you can see that there is a question tab of on the right side of the webinar interface where you can go and post some questions. Questions are not public, so we will see your question, we will address them. Some of them we will answer on the fly, others we will repeat them at the end if we believe that they are of general interest. Please do not use the chat for questions because we are monitoring the question inside the question tab. You can use the chat to react, but we will also be using the chat to post a number of links that might be interesting for you to look at. So the agenda for today, I am going to continue a little bit on the introduction. I want to just show a very quick update on some of our Eagleview 1 application through the lens on how we are using imagery API ourselves for our own applications. So that's going to be just a couple of minutes. And then we will dive into the core of this webinar today. We will look at the developer capabilities first. Then we will discuss the imagery from a value differentiation and example standpoint. Then we will welcome our customers to show what they are doing Propertify with our technology. And in the last section, we'll do two things. First, we will look at the details of some of the API calls. So this will be really, I would say, the practical developer experience if you want to use the API. And we'll talk about the new trial that we are launching today. And we'll conclude with some Q&A. Now, the interesting thing in this webinar today is that we have people from, I would say, all around the world. So some of us are in the US, East Coast, West Coast. We have people in Bahrain. We have people in the UK. We also have people in Australia. So for that reason, we've actually pre-recorded some of the content here. So you will see a kind of a mix of live and a pre-recorded session. But everybody will come in at the end of the webinar for the Q&A, so we can work on the questions. So let's get doing. So before we jump into the imagery API, I just want to spend, as I said, a couple of minutes sharing with you some of the ways that we use at Eagleview our own API. So let me share my screen here. So I'm going to log into our application. So let me just type in my login here. There we go. So when you log into I'm not going to spend too much time on this segment because we've actually dedicated episode 1 to this solution. But I just wanted to show you a couple of things. So if we start a new order here for a specific property, I am going to punch an address in the interface here that I've prepared for you. And there are two things you can do today. You can look at the structure measurement, which is our core product. And we've also previewed a property data beta that is running right now, where you can go in here, and for that property, it will just pull out information and display them in pretty much interactive mode. So it can take up to a minute to do so. So it's going to go. So here we go. So you can see that for that specific address, we have some very basic information about the two structures that have been detected, things about the roof age or about the presence of solar panel. And we're also pulling some imagery information here. Now, this is a beta product. We are still, it's still in preview mode, so you can't do very much with those images right now, but you can see that with pulling the imagery here, and in future releases, we will be able to actually zoom in, zoom out, and see more and more of the images. So this is one illustration on how we use imagery here. The second thing I wanted to show you, which is more in the I would say our property viewer interface that we have released recently. So for this property, I already have ordered the report. So if I go directly in the property viewer, you can see that we are going to show a visual of the 3D model of the property here. So again, I'm not going to spend time on that. There's a whole episode on it. But what is interesting from an imagery standpoint here is that, so you have the 3D model of the property here. You can actually overlay the roof imagery on top of the roof here. This is something we've added recently. But when it comes to imagery, you can also zoom in here, look at on the bottom left corner of the interface. You have access to the imagery here for the specific property, and you actually also have access to historical images. So the images that were used for the measurements, sometimes for some reasons, some images are used for measurements, and then there are newer versions, which is the case here. So you can actually access our own imagery from the property viewer, which is what I wanted to show you today briefly in this demonstration. So let me stop sharing and go back here into the slide deck, if I can put it back up. And so that's what I wanted to show you as an introduction. Now I'm going to hand over the presentation to Bree for the first developer overview. So Bree, you can join the stage, and we're going to get moving now.
Yep, super. Okay, just one slide to introduce here. My name's Bree Hearn. I'm a director of product management here at Eagleview, responsible for our developer experience. So my team's North Star, our main mission, is to make discovering, evaluating, and getting productive with our APIs possible as fast as possible. Everything we do is in service of that goal. And you may ask, why do we have a developer experience product line at Eagleview? And it really is because we believe that the developer community is going to be critical to our growth story. And we've seen over and over again how our data and our imagery becomes exponentially more powerful in the hands of developers who turn it into really meaningful solutions and workflows. So over on the right here, I'm not going to hit all these bullets. It's just a high-level overview of what we're going to be hitting in the tour of our developer suite. So Dimitri, do you want to start the video? Okay, here we are at our developer portal. You can see the URL is developer.eagleview.com. You can navigate here directly, or you'll also find a link to developer in the top level of our main company website. So going through the landing page here, we do call out the types of products that we offer across imagery, property data, measurements, and our solar system design, and then which APIs you can use to retrieve those products. Keep going here. We have a highlight of our training and tutorials, and I use the word highlight because we do have a lot of content throughout the site, and this is just a selection, but expect that this will be a growing area of the site as more and more content gets loaded up. We've got latest updates. This is an aggregation of all the release notes across our APIs. Each API has its own release notes section, but here's a great place where you can go to kind of see the latest across the API suite. So going into the documentation, We've organized it into these same categories that you see below. Since imagery is the star of the show, we'll go deeper here. Each API has their documentation separated into these same general categories. An overview where we cover the general functions of the API and what we recommend its use for. For user guides, we have more detailed guides on how to get up and running as quickly as possible. And in fact, we have invested some time in this recently where we've got, I think, 2 more articles that are coming out. They're going through edits right now, but should be released any day. So this is an area where we're trying to provide as much detail as possible. Then we've got API documentation, your standard Swagger doc rendering here that lists out the endpoints and then how we're expecting the format of the requests and then what responses you can expect. And you'll see over here we've got sample code on the side. Sandbox. So for imagery, we have a 1.5 square mile section of Omaha, Nebraska available for testing. This is real production data that we've just geofenced for the sandbox data, but everything you experience in the sandbox should be the same as what you'll see in production. We have created Postman collections that you can download, and then we provide details on how to set up those environment variables to make your calls. And then as mentioned before, we've got the release notes here specific to the imagery API. Last bit on documentation. On the left-hand side, we've got more global documentation. Authentication methods can be a little tricky sometimes because we offer quite a few kinds of authentication. Client credentials is what you'll use for imagery, so this would be the guide of interest that just takes you step by step on how to get your access token. We also recommend the token management article. Okay, so that's a view of the documentation. Let's get logged in. So here you can log in with an existing Eagleview account, or you can sign up to create a new one. These are free developer accounts. I already have an account, so I'll just get logged in. And then I'm going to navigate to my apps. You can see I've got a few apps already created. I'll go into my Sandbox app here. I've been making a few requests, so you can see that we offer how many requests you've made, how many are successful, and how many errors you've gotten over a few different intervals. We also list out your top errors, so if you're seeing errors on one particular endpoint, you can go check out the documentation if anything needs to be addressed. We also, on the Credentials tab, give you the ability to have 2 client secrets. This really helps with key rotation. If you want to rotate your keys, you can create a new one, get that one set up in your system, and then disable this old one. Okay. Last call I'd want to make on the apps is that when you create a production app, you do have to submit it for a go live for us to review that, make sure you have the right access, that everything's going to work for you. And once we get that approved, then your app will be live. Okay. I'm going to hit the support page quickly here. This page allows you to submit any questions you might have. If you need help from our support team, you can choose to add a file if you so choose. Contact sales, if you want to have a deeper demo or learn more about our products, you can contact sales. And then feedback. Right now, this is just an email, and I'm on the other end of that email. So we love feedback. We'd love to know what's working, what's not working, what you think of the documentation. So please do use it. We really do value your feedback. And speaking of feedback, last thing I'm going to hit here is we do have some testimonials at the bottom of our homepage for customers and for partners who have done integrations with Eagleview and who have had positive experiences. We're really proud of these and we'd love to have more. So again, let us know what you think. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Travis. He's going to take us on a deep dive of our imagery product.
Thanks, Bree. Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Clemens, Director of Product Management here at Eagleview and leader of our imagery product portfolio. Now I'm going to provide an overview of our Eagleview imagery products and their capabilities. When highlighting the value of Eagleview imagery, you must first start with Eagleview as an innovator and thought leader in this industry. From our first capture in the early 2000s to our recent launch of our Eagleview Reveal imagery portfolio, Eagleview has led the way by delivering premium, high-resolution imagery enabled by Eagleview's advancements in both camera and software technology. Our customers have come to depend on our product's clarity, accuracy, and coverage, along with our highly performant APIs, which seamlessly integrate into their workflows. Our imagery API will be discussed in more detail throughout this webinar. In addition to Eagleview Reveal, Eagleview Vault was also recently launched and is our living imagery library for our premium high-resolution imagery products. Eagleview captures over 600,000 square miles of imagery annually, and new content is added daily. These imagery products primarily focus on content over North America. Eagleview currently covers approximately 94% of the US population and 65% of the population in Canada. Eagleview also has a metro capture program that feeds Eagleview Vault with annual refreshes or better for major urban areas in the US and Canada. This ensures customers always have the most recent imagery and data to support the wide variety of use cases they may have. Here's an example of the Northeast US, from DC to Boston. As you can see, these urban regions represent areas with dense populations along with high-density commercial and residential properties. The Metro Capture program is committed to consistency and has been growing on an annual basis since its inception, driven by our customers' feedback. Now here's an example of the power of the Metro Capture program, demonstrated through historical views of the construction of SoFi Stadium near Los Angeles, California. In the end, this level of historical detail allows users to identify change or trends related to assets or properties in their area of interest. This could be a new development, major changes to a property, or when assessing damage from a natural disaster or other events. Eagleview's post-event imagery can also be accessed through Eagleview Vault. Eagleview has a proud history of supporting government and commercial customers impacted by natural disasters and other events. Our post-event capture program started with the 9/11 terrorist attack, where Eagleview supported the assessment and recovery efforts after this historical event. Eagleview continues today flying disasters throughout North America. In 2024, Eagleview flew over 60 flights, covering almost 10,000 square miles of areas impacted primarily by hurricanes, tornadoes, and wildfires. This pictured an example of Tropicana Field in Florida, in the city of Tampa, prior to Hurricane Helene. After the hurricane made landfall, it had significant impact to the region due to flooding and structural damage. This included destroying the roof on Tropicana Field. In this zoomed-in image, you can see the level of detail related to the damage that occurred to both the structure and the field below. Now let's talk specifically about the products offered as part of Eagleview Reveal, including orthogonal, also known as ortho, and oblique imagery. Ortho imagery is captured from directly above the property, looking straight down. Eagleview systems then orthorectifies these images, which removes any distortion and makes every pixel appear as if the camera was positioned directly overhead. The result is imagery with consistent scale across the entire image, along with high positional accuracy. Oblique imagery is captured at an angle rather than straight down. These images show the size of buildings, vertical features, providing a broader, more natural perspective similar to what you would see when standing on the ground. This imagery type is particularly valuable for property damage assessment and visual inspections. In summary, through the imagery API, users get access to both ortho and oblique imagery. This provides users with a 360-degree perspective of assets, a property, or an area of interest. It also provides users with access to historical imagery. As stated before, the high-resolution imagery provides the clarity necessary to support both visual and AI workflows. In the end, this enables our customers to derive the advanced insights to support their workflows or solutions. Now let's see clarity in action. This is an example of a Topgolf facility in Tennessee, taken with Eagleview Reveal 1-inch imagery. In this image, you can clearly see the sand traps, net poles, and equipment on top of the facilities. As most of you know, golf balls are relatively small and hard to find, especially when hit into the rough. With Eagleview's 1-inch imagery, you can see detail as small as a golf ball, which measures approximately 1.5 inches in diameter. Although this is a unique example, I hope you can relate and identify opportunities to improve your workflow and derive more value. This could be analyzing street signs in an urban environment or equipment on a tower. The challenge to you, the user or developer, is how can you maximize the value from your Eagleview imagery? Now I have the pleasure to pass it off to our valued customer, Propertify. They are going to share their experience integrating the new imagery API and how Eagleview imagery products has strengthened their workflow and solutions. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Corey Decker. I'm co-founder and CEO at Propertify, and I'm excited to be joining on this webinar with Eagleview to discuss how we're utilizing their imagery and discovery API in the property intelligence and property improvement space. So we'll go into a little bit about what Propertify does, and then we'll dive into the specifics of how we're utilizing those APIs to kind of accelerate our market analysis and growth, and how we were able to go from taking a 2-month analysis of a market down to a single week utilizing what we're doing with Eagleview. So first off, high-level overview of what Propertify does is within the property improvement space, we create custom AI and ML models based upon 3 foundational models, specifically to identify property improvement companies' ideal customers. So the specific properties in any given market that meet their ideal customer. So whether this is existing customers that they're already servicing, existing buildings they're already servicing, or if they're looking to expand into new territories and new markets, this is where we come in. So how it works is we essentially take across nationwide, we utilize Eagleview's image API and their high resolution aerial imagery along with third-party data, so property data, permit data, our own proprietary data, to then run through our AI and ML models to determine, let's say any given market, let's say it's San Diego or San Bernardino or a specific city in Austin, Texas, or whatever the case might be. And we have a company that comes to us, say for example an asphalt company, that says, hey, we have a portfolio of properties where we need to monitor the asphalt quality, whether what needs to be replaced, if it's cracked, etc., or we want to expand into a new market. We're not really sure what to go after. So is it better to move into XYZ city? Is it better to stay where we are? Help us identify kind of the way to grow our business. That's where we come in. And we use all of this to essentially build a predictive model for these customers and find all of their ideal customers across the nation in their given geographies. And so, for example, keeping asphalt as an example, we would identify all the commercial properties or even residential properties that fit their ideal customer of who they're looking for, and then utilizing our own AI ML models, determine all the ones that are cracked, say more than 10 to 15% or 10 to 30% of the given property needs to be replaced. That would be a great candidate for them. Then we take that on the individual property level and then expand that to say how many of those exist within San Diego with this specific criteria. And what that allows us to do is then provide actionable data for our partners to understand which markets to move into and where they potentially could be growing where they already are. That's kind of a high level. We'll kind of go into more about how we utilize that, but that's kind of the primary piece that we do here at Propertify. So you have the 2 sides. You have the customer profiling. Who is your customer? Where do they exist? And then market expansion. Where should you go and how do you grow your business where you already are? So we'll kind of give a before and after quickly of what was life at Property 5 before partnering with Eagleview, and then what is it like now. So we had three primary pain points. Number one, we struggled with historical imagery, right? So in the space, there's only so many aerial imagery providers and satellite providers. Historical imagery is one of the biggest problems when you're building a change model, right? So you need to be able to go back as far as possible to then be able to predict into the future when certain things will need to be replaced, when where is going to show up, what the life expectancy is of a given property for a given attribute. If you can only go back 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it makes it that much more difficult to predict and analyze where to go and which properties are a good use case. So only being able to go back that far really limited our geographies and our ability for our models to be accurate. So we kind of hit a wall. Number two was kind of a guessing game of where to go in the market. So we originally started kind of city by city, and it would take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to analyze a given city to determine what is the opportunity here for a pilot partner. What does this look like? It was a very slow and manual process. And number three, as we build internal AI and ML models. Obviously, the higher resolution, the better. We couldn't go on the drone route because we wouldn't be able to scale with that. Obviously, drones is very property by property or neighborhood by neighborhood. It's difficult to get that across entire cities, states, or certainly nationwide. And then satellite imagery was not high enough resolution, obviously, to be able to do what we need to do, because our focus is not being able to classify, let's say, 150 or 250 different attributes about a property. It's the 10, 15, 20 things that we want to be hyper specific on and as close to 100% accurate on our models, obviously on recall and prediction, to be able to identify these sub-classifications, like a specific kind of asphalt or even cracks within the asphalt, or a specific kind of siding or a specific kind of window, etc. So that's kind of our business model. So we needed it to be as accurate as possible. And the given resolution we were working with on Zoom 20 and sometimes Zoom 21 just wasn't quite there. And so we were hitting roadblocks technically of what we were able to achieve, which was the core of our business model. So when we started partnering with Eagleview and exploring that relationship and working with them on the developer side and how we were going to integrate these things, this is kind of what unlocked the opportunity of what Property5 is today. So Eagleview obviously goes back 15 plus years on their historic imagery. So you can have a case where you have high resolution aerial imagery, but you can't go back in time, right? So you can't go back and create the 10 to 15 years that exist. We needed that to be able to build out our models. Going back 15 years across the United States is essential in change models. And then obviously their 1-inch resolution or sub 1-inch resolution, in this case sub 3-inch resolution capture in the top 50 metros covering over 700,000 square miles, we were able to consistently rely on Zoom 22 imagery. And by utilizing the Zoom 22 imagery, we can get that sub-classification within our AI and ML models to identify things we literally would not show up or even be possible to show up in other providers. You're talking 4 times the amount of pixels on a Zoom 22 versus a Zoom 21 image. So, and then having that reliably covered at least once per year allows us to refresh that every single year. And then the Discovery API allowed us to now move from city by city analysis to daily nationwide, which Kyle, a senior solution architect at Property5, will dive into what we're able to do and how we were able to implement that. So we were able to go from this small footprint to this much larger footprint very quickly. So this enabled us to kind of transition our model from a very slow sales driven to being very data driven, which drives sales. And so, especially particularly using the imagery API, which is our base foundational layer for all of our AI and ML modeling, and then Discovery API, which helps us determine where should we go and when should we target that. So in order to explain that, Kyle will kind of dive into the platform internally of how we're utilizing this and explain a little bit about how the Discovery API comes into that.
Kyle Starks, I'm a solutions architect at Property5, and today I'm going to be walking you all through how easy it was for us to get started with the Eagleview imagery API and how we integrated it into our production environments. So specifically, I'm going to be talking about just an example of how we use the Discovery endpoint. So this endpoint is one of the endpoints you'll get access to or have access to through the imagery API bundle. And so this endpoint returns all of Eagleview's capture boundaries, and it includes their entire 15 plus year historical capture program. And so for us, this is really beneficial in temporal precision. So we can say, And we can use this as a prerequisite to calling the orthomosaic images to the tiles or the images endpoint. And we can say for a given collection of assets or properties, hey, these are all of the image dates that we can reliably expect from the Eagleview Imagery API. And so this is our internal application. This is just a development environment for it. We have all of the urban areas to showcase where the population is overlaid on here. And it was very, very easy for me to overlay and integrate the Eagleview Discovery API here. And so right now I'm filtering by the most recent captures that Eagleview has done within the last 6 months. And we use this, the way I set it up is just I have it on a daily cron job, downloading every day and saving the metadata to our Postgres table, and then I serve it up via Martin Vector Tile Service. You can integrate the endpoint directly into your application. You can download the capture boundaries as a GeoJSON and load it into QGIS. You can load it into Esri, whatever mapping framework you're working in. But for us at Propertify, it helps a lot with letting our internal teams know, hey, Eagleview just published a new flight. Great, we can kick off our internal processes and our AI/ML processing or whatever other action we want. What we can also do, and what we actively do, is we download all of the historical metadata from the Eagleview Discovery API, and we load it into H3 bins. So we can clearly see, hey, for the entire Los Angeles area, this entire Los Angeles urban area, Eagleview's got us covered with recency and coverage. And we have kind of a unique way to just quick visually showcase our internal teams. Hey, we want to move into Los Angeles urban area. Great. Eagleview has us covered on recency. And so, yeah, that is one of the ways we quickly were able to integrate the Eagleview APIs into our workflow, and I hope this helps.
So that gives a little overview. Obviously, we could talk for hours about the technical implementation side. So with the Q&A, we'll be able to answer specific questions of how we're utilizing the Eagleview Imagery API and Discovery API. But I just want to focus overall, before getting there, on what Kyle was doing and how that actually impacted the business and helped us to move so much faster nationwide. So the biggest two things, obviously, if you guys are startup founders or work for a startup or just trying to move your developer team faster, is ability to move quickly. So it's speed and it's scalability, right? So those are the two primary things. Assuming quality and accuracy is there, then speed and scalability will get you where you need to go. So with Eagleview, what we're able to do with speed is now we have, as Kyle showed you, every single day we're doing an analysis of, did new Eagleview imagery come in? If it did, across the entire nation, doesn't matter where it is, in less than 24 hours, with the Discovery API, we're able to now use that as a trigger. So Eagleview kind of, in addition to being the foundational layer, is actually the trigger for which markets we want to analyze next for our customers. So it decreased our go-to-market literally from 2 months to less than a week. So we're now able to run it through our entire AI and ML pipeline, and honestly with less than a week, so maybe 1 to 2 days, and then sales can act on that and know where to go next. So the speed was absolutely massive for us to be able to move from multiple months to a single week. And then scalability wise, we were going city by city, zip code by zip code. Now nationwide, doesn't matter where it shows up, doesn't matter which state it's in. We've trained our models across imagery across the United States. So as soon as that imagery comes in and acts as a trigger, we're able to move from that small analysis to this nationwide prediction model, which then accelerates the rest of our business. So it's been a massive improvement. And so the ROI and impact metrics for when you guys are looking at this, not just from a technical standpoint, but actual return on utilizing partnership with Eagleview and their APIs, is obviously number one, going from a 2-month process to a single week process is a huge reduction in developer resources. So instead of engineers having to focus on technical debt and API integration and just making the nuts and bolts of a pipeline work, they can actually focus on solving the real problems of the business, things that actually bring value to the business rather than just kind of accruing more technical debt. So being able to offload that, knowing Eagleview is delivering the Discovery API and the Imagery API, and we can just utilize that. It allows us to focus the primary developer effort on what makes Propertify unique rather than having to, developed an SDK that should exist in the first place. So going from 2 months to a week was a massive reduction in developer time and resource. And then primarily on the imagery side, which I could talk about for a long time, but doing that 1-inch resolution and the highest resolution on the market is we actually increased our ML precision and recall by 30%. So going from Zoom 21 to Zoom 22 imagery, we were able to detect that subclassification in our semantic segmentation models that we weren't able to do with any other imagery. And then lastly, we were able to go from sales determining basically where can we find a customer first, and then running it through our models and determining is this a good fit or not. Because now we're able to update it daily in our system, we're able to utilize that data to then determine where sales should target, right? So now sales is enabled to look at this information and say, you know what, Eagleview just ran new imagery in Austin, Texas. That's a great market for the next 3 to 6 months. It's going to be perfect for us. We enable it there, and they're able to go and move into a city that is prepared for sales to execute within a week, whereas our previous pilots would take, 8 to 12 weeks. So there's a lot that we could dive into, and I'm happy to answer questions, or even after the webinar, if you guys have questions about how we're implementing everything. Kyle and I are happy to answer that and kind of walk you through things, but I'm excited to see what else you guys are building with Eagleview. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, Corey and Kai. Really appreciate you taking the time to show us the value you're taking in and how you're using our technology. So the next segment now, we are going to dive deeper into the way you can use the API. So I'm going to roll the tape here with Josh, who's going to show you that, and so you can actually really learn on how to use our API.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Maisie, Principal Technical Product Manager at Eagleview. Today I'm going to give you a deep dive into the imagery API and provide a demo. Now before we get started, it's useful to understand the different components to Eagleview's imagery API. Each of these components contain one or more different API operations. So discovery lets you find images and metadata in Eagleview's deep historical archive. Tiles are 256 by 256 pixel images, and they provide high performance access to Eagleview's side angle oblique and top-down ortho imagery. And then finally, images allow you to access side angle and top-down images up to 4096 by 4096 pixels. So with all that said, let's jump over to Postman for a demo. Let's get started with discovery, and in particular, fetching a list of orthomosaic images. It's a brand new endpoint that was released in October 2025. If you're not aware, orthomosaics are top-down ortho-rectified images which have been stitched together to provide coverage over a larger area. Now in this case, I'm supplying a location as a polygon of the Omaha Fire Department, station number 34. I also could supply that location as a center point or as a center and a radius. Or alternatively, I could supply no location at all and just paginate through Eagleview's entire orthomosaic archive. Now in this particular example, I'm asking for any orthomosaics that intersect the location I've supplied. We also support contains. And then you can see there's a number of filters that can optionally be supplied. And these are totally optional, but often very useful just to narrow down your search a little. So we're asking for visual orthomosaic images as opposed to, say, infrared. We're asking for orthomosaics that have been aerial triangulated or measured. Only consider orthomosaics captured from 2020 onwards. And then also we're supplying a max GSD, which is ground sample distance, and that controls the resolution of orthomosaics that are returned. The lower the value, the higher the resolution. In this case, I'm saying any that are equal to or better than 15 centimeter GSD. And then just a number of response properties that I'd like back in the response. So if we send that off, we get back a list of orthomosaics. Each one has a URN, unique reference number. We've got the category back, the level. We can see when this orthomosaic was captured over March 2025. We also know when it was published, what its GSD is. I can see this is one of our high resolution 1-inch orthomosaics. It's been tiled out from zoom levels 8 to 23. And then we've also got the ground footprint here of that particular orthomosaic. Now, if you're interested in side angle obliques and top-down orthos, then this API operation is probably for you. What this operation does is accepts a location that's up to 25,000 square meters, which is approximately 6 acres, and it will then go through and identify all the images at that location, group them into captures, and also rank them within captures as well. And that's really important because, for reference, Eagleview has literally billions of images. It's not uncommon for a single point on the ground to have thousands of images. So this API just makes it significantly simpler for you to be able to understand what images we have and what are the most appropriate ones to go and use for your particular use case. So in this case, here we're asking for northeast, southwest obliques. We're also asking for orthos as well. I've got my max GSD filter again. I'd like 15 centimeters or better. And we're asking for 2 images per view. So return a maximum of 2 north, east, southwest, and ortho images per capture. Now, if you don't specify, probably just worth noting, if you don't specify anything there, we'll default to 1, but you can ask for up to 5. There's some capture level filters that you can supply as well. So we've got our capture date filter. In this case here, I'm asking to exclude any captures from our disaster program. So that's things like hurricane captures, tornado captures, and so on. We're also saying that we only want to consider captures that contain a northeast, southwest, and ortho image at the supplied location. And we would like up to 5 captures to be returned. And if there's more captures available, then we'll just provide you with a next token and you can paginate to the next batch of captures. So let's fire that request off. Now the response we get back is slightly different here to search orthomosaics. We're grouping by capture. And we can see the first capture that we're looking at is 16th of March to the 25th of March, 2025. And we've then got our oblique images. So starting with our first north-facing oblique image, we've got a URN. We can see when it was published. We can see the exact date and time that it was captured. We've also got a tile box. Now, a tile box is really useful if you're going to retrieve imagery via tiles. And what this says is that the maximum zoom level we have for this imagery is at zoom level 7, for this oblique shot. And if you wanted to go and fetch tiles, you would have to go and ask for tiles top to bottom, 66 through to 71, and then left to right, 24 through to 30. We also provide you with an estimated requested location, which just translates back the location that you asked for into pixel space within those tiles. We've got the calculated GSD of this particular image, the zoom range that it's tiled out to, the ground footprint, and also some details about what the camera was looking at. So the camera center, the elevation describes effectively the obliqueness of the image. So this is 42 degrees oblique. And then the azimuth, which describes the direction that the camera was facing in degrees, measured from north. Now, we've got some images now, and we want to go and fetch them and retrieve the actual images. So let's talk about how we do that. The first way you can do this is through tiles. Now tiles, just as a reminder, are 256 by 256 portions of an image. They're designed for high performance access to Eagleview imagery. And one thing really important to note, they're great for interactive use cases, but also awesome for machine-driven use cases as well, especially where you need performance. Now top-down ortho images, like this one that we're looking at here, are slippy map aligned. So we can see here, we're asking for PNG tiles back. We're supplying the image URN and then just a Z, X, and Y coordinate. And if we send that one off, we will get back an image. And this is our ortho image covering the Omaha Fire Department Station 34. And so we can then, if we just move across one, we'll increment the tile coordinate. We'll see we just shift over to the next tile along. So there's the end of the car in that tile, and there's the start of the car in that tile, and our building just continues along. Now you ask for oblique tiles in the exact same structure, just the ZXY are going to be different. And with oblique imagery, it's image aligned. So that means the zoom level begins at 0. That's its most zoomed out. And the X and Y coordinates start from 0, 0, representing the left and top edge. So in this case, and remember our tile box comes in really handy here that we got from the Discovery API. So we've now got what we were looking at previously, but we've got the north-facing image there. So there's the wall of the fire department. Here's that car that we were looking at, and we could increment that one over and just iterate through the various tile coordinates, and we could traverse along that wall and eventually see the entire extent of the building if we fired enough tile requests. Now, another way to retrieve imagery through the imagery APIs is using the images endpoint. So what this does is it accepts an area. You can also supply a center and a radius. We'll take the polygon that we've been working with this entire time. This time we'll ask for some JPEG imagery at zoom 22, and let's supply it with our image URN that we're interested in. And here's an image that's now been stitched together. It's effectively multiple tiles that get stitched together, and you can create an image up to 4096 by 4096 pixels or equivalent. So down here, that's that car we were interested in or looking at previously, that was featured in the previous tile we were having a look at. Now we can do the exact same thing for an oblique image as well. So let's take one of the oblique images we got back in our response, and now we've got the perspective of the wall, and there's our little kind of point of interest that we've been centering in for the purpose of this demo. Now this particular endpoint has a whole range of different things that you can configure, but I would say one of the most common that we see is that, okay, I've got an image back, but I actually need it at a certain width and height in order to fit into my application. Well, you can do that by just specifying either a width, a height, or both parameters. So in this case, I want that exact same image, but I would like it to be sized at 400 pixels wide by 400 pixels high, and it's been resized down. So that wraps up my demo today. We would love for you to give these new capabilities a try and send us your feedback. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone. Okay, so wrapping up here, just we'll cover some housekeeping on some next steps, and then we'll get into our Q&A session. So first, please visit our developer portal at developer.eagleview.com. Again, signing up for an account is free, and you can check out documentation even without an account. If you do sign up, you would get immediate access to live imagery in our free sandbox, so we encourage you to try that out. If you are interested, as we kind of previewed at the beginning of this, we're going to be offering a limited early access free trial that you can sign up for. Those links will be going in the chat. The trial will consist of you getting access to 2 square miles of any area of interest that's interesting to you, and you'll have that access for 30 days. And then finally, if you're interested in getting more information on our products, you want to understand a bit more about pricing or become a customer, you can contact our sales team, and that contact sales link is also going to go in the chat. And then finally, we're a little bit of a broken record, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask for feedback. So if you check out the developer portal, if you sign up and use a trial, if you're an active customer now, we'd love to hear what's working and what's not working. It really helps us get better. So with that, we'll go into Q&A, and I'll invite my colleagues and Corey and Kyle to come on camera.
We're also welcoming Joe, who has been monitoring the Q&A section and is going to give us a highlight on the question that were asked during the...
Yeah, hi everyone. So the first question I'm going to direct at Bree. Are there any costs associated to using the developer portal?
No, the developer portal is free to use. As I mentioned, the developer accounts are free. The sandbox is free. Once you'd be ready to move into production and start getting production data, that's when there are costs associated. So we'd recommend getting in touch with our sales team to learn more about that. But everything up until production is free.
Okay, awesome. Is Josh on
I
stage?
don't think we're going to get Josh on.
Okay, no problem. He's, yeah, it's in the middle of the night.
From Australia today.
Yeah, no problem. So this one I can probably direct towards Travis. So what image formats are supported by the imagery API?
Thanks, Joe. Right now we offer two primary formats, which is JPEG and PNG. And we also offer a hybrid of JPEG PNG, which kind of automatically allows the user to select based on need for transparency.
Okay, excellent. Let's see. Okay, back to you, Bree. What's the best way to get up and running with it quickly with an integration?
Yeah, good question. Some of you may or may not want to hear this, but the answer is documentation. So we've got quite a bit of documentation on the site. For the imagery API, I specifically recommend the quick start guide. And then we also have a usage examples. So our quick start will show you step-by-step, here's how to get to your first successful API call. And then the usage examples covers common request patterns where we've given you a block of code that you could leverage. And then, of course, leveraging the sandbox is a great place to learn about how the APIs work.
Great. And actually, as a follow-up question to that for Corey and Kyle, any advice, since you're building a production app, any advice you would give to another team or developer for getting a solution into market quickly?
Yeah, I'll let Kyle kind of answer that, and on the strategy side, I can answer. I'll let him answer on the integration side.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I guess the fastest way, I think, like Bree mentioned, is definitely the documentation and having, I guess, like a one-on-one call maybe with a solutions engineer at Eagleview. But yeah, the Discover API helped us a lot with getting all the metadata to then call the actual imagery. So geospatial kind of development is a bit hard at sometimes, so that getting all that metadata ahead of time first really helped us out a lot.
Awesome. Anything to add, Corey?
No, I was saying it actually wasn't too difficult to integrate. It's really, honestly, the best thing to start with is just whatever your use case is, right? So for us, it was specifically, we knew what data we needed to work with first. So we had a very, like, come up with your, hey, we want to know how far back the imagery goes in this particular area, or we care about capture data, we care about published data, we care about GSD, or we care about the tile, like pulling down tile APIs for, or all the tiles for an existing parcel. Just think of it in terms of just start with one use case that would benefit you guys the most. That's kind of where we started. And then dive into the documentation there, test it out. And then once you get into it, you'll see there's 5, 6, 7 other things you could be utilizing that you didn't know were there. And you just kind of keep adding it on gradually.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, I think this one is for Travis. Does Eagleview always have oblique and ortho imagery coverage for the areas you capture?
Yeah, another great question. So our capture methodology allows us to go up every time and capture ortho imagery and then pair it up with oblique imagery on every flight. So what this gives you is consistency, throughout North America as you access our imagery.
Awesome. I think I've captured most of the questions that came in. There were a few that were duplicative. But yeah, I think that's it for the Q&A. Dimitri, did you have other things that you wanted to?
Wonderful. Yes, just closing in here first. Oh, yes, I also noticed there was one, maybe it was in the chat, there was a question regarding the availability of or getting more information on the property data API specifically. So the answer is that, go look at the developer website documentation. And that actually gives me a segue to a great transition to our next episode, which is going to be happening on December 16th. So you can see that on the screen. And this episode will be dedicated to the property data concept. So you will see during this episode how we use it ourselves, how it is being used in PDF reports or by third party, as well as the specific API for the property data this time. So you have the QR code here, and we'll be promoting it after Thanksgiving. Now, I think that concludes the session today. So I want to thank you very, very much, all attendees, for joining, listening, and staying with us today. And I want to give a big thank to Propertify here, Corey and Kyle, and all to all the panelists. And we look forward to see everybody back in a future episode of our webinar series.